Today we're going to look at student-centered learning strategies. There are many techniques you can use with your classroom to have a student-centered learning environment. We're going to look at this website that has lots of techniques and strategies and tips that you can use in your classroom. Patty Gordon, Shannon O'Neill, and Mabel Pearson have done a literature review to help consolidate some of these techniques for you and give you some ideas. So let's go on and find out what's up. First, we're going to talk about metacognition. And metacognition is how do learners think about learning? You want to find out what do your learners think about their studying and their study skills? What kinds of organizational skills do they have with their materials and their activities? How do your learners make connections to the real world and apply it to their own life? And do your learners feel like they have control of their learning? These are all things that are metacognitive skills that your students need to know to be moving on to a student-centered learning. For motivation, you want to consider what motivates your students to learn. What kinds of rewards do they get for doing their studying? Are they intrinsic learners looking for knowledge and self-satisfaction, or extrinsic learners looking for grades and social status? How can the instructors instill the motivation into their kids? Behavioral strategies include what kinds of behaviors make successful learning? What study habits do your students need? How do they manage time and scheduling their activities? And how do they seek help when they need it? Class climate is our next strategy that we're going to look at. So you need to figure out during student-centered learning, how do you arrange your classroom to be conducive for your learners? What kinds of cooperative learning activities are you offering? Do your learners feel safe sharing and presenting in their classroom? And what kinds of resources do your kids have access to? They need a comfortable space that's easy to work with and gives them lots of options for their learning styles. Students need a choice in their student-centered learning as well. What kinds of choices are you offering your kids? Do they get a list of topics to choose from, or do they get to pick any topics that they want? What kinds of grading structures are you offering your students? And what is the timeline needed for completing assignments and activities? Next, we're going to look at instructor involvement. And I know that might be the most difficult part of this, but instructors and teachers need to step back and look at the way they're structuring their classroom and how are they supporting their kids. So we're going to look at what is the teacher doing during student-centered learning? How do we step back and become facilitators instead of just a dictator in your classroom in charge of everything? What kinds of feedback should your learners be receiving from you? And how do they communicate with instructors and peers to further their education? And how are we incorporating questioning and debriefing so that your students will feel supported and connected to their learning? The last group of strategies we're going to look at is with technology integration. So what kinds of technologies do your students have accessibilities to? How does technology assist your students in their learning endeavors? What kinds of social media play a part in student-centered learning environments? And how do your learners use technology? What skills do they come with? And what skills do we need to further them along with during their social and emotional learning with student-centered learning? Now we need to allow our students to take charge of their learning. We need to foster their thinking skills and motivate them properly. We're giving them the behavioral study habits they need in a comfortable classroom climate to work in. Our learners need choices and a facilitator that'll walk them through this endeavor. With 21st century technology skills, we need to give them the options they need to work well with others. So this website will give us the answers to these student-centered learning questions. So look around and learn more.